I did it! Today marks number 20 in my YouTube journey, and I'm so excited to be here. For those of you who may remember and who were here from the beginning, when I started this, I said my goal is to hit number 20. I want to get 20 YouTube episodes done. And the reason why was because I really wanted to make sure that I focused on progress over perfection. I didn't want to get in my head and say, okay, you got to do this and you got to do that, and this has to be perfect, and you have to figure out the best backdrop and all these different things. I said, let me knock out 20 and then I'll worry about being perfect. So I did it. I got to number 20. And really quickly, really funny, guys, I have not ever watched number one. So I'm probably going to go back at some point and watch the progression from number one to today. If you guys have, and there's some hilarious things about number one that you saw, please drop them in the comments. I would love to see what you guys thought about my first episode to today. But today, for me, it's really a celebration moment. And I really wanted to take the time to think about all the things that I've learned, all the ways that I've grown, and maybe even share some things that I didn't expect I would realize about myself in this moment. And not just from the technical side. I think you guys may have remembered there was one episode that I recorded and I did it beautifully and fantastic. And then I realized I'd hit the rehearsal button in the streaming software and not the actual go live button. So, I could probably fill a short little journal on funky little stories and anecdotes around that. But this is more about just me personally. How did it change me personally? And hold on, I'm about to turn my heater off. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background, but here in Nashville, it is kind of unseasonably chilly today. But yeah, I really wanted to take the time and kind of share what I've learned over these past 20 episodes and what that looks like, and how that can hopefully maybe cheer you guys on if there's something new, something hard, something difficult that you're pushing through for yourself. So the first thing, and maybe you guys will be surprised at this one, maybe not, but for me, one of the biggest takeaways in this journey was the power of consistency. And I know that, people talk about consistency and how important it is and to not stop. But one of the things that I realized about myself, maybe about episode 6, episode 7 in, was that for me, I enjoy learning new things, which that part's not surprising. I've talked about that before, but I don't necessarily ever force myself to go the extra mile and master something. And it was one of those moments where I really had to sit with that knowledge and be okay, Shanice, yes, learning new things has served you very well in the past. But maybe this idea of you figure something out and then you jump to the next thing without allowing that new knowledge to sit inside you and mature in you and really develop, maybe it's time you let that go. Maybe you let that go, and maybe you embrace this season where you now have to have mastery over a couple more things instead of just jumping on to the next one. And I think for me, coming from a background in sales, there was new technology that came out, I was about to say every year, but every month, right? So you never really had the chance to master something, right? We would get a new tool and a new tool would come out, or we'd start selling a product and then, the revision for that product would come out. So I never really had to sit down and truly master something for months and months on end or years on end. And like I said, that served me fantastic in the space that I'm in. But now in this new space, there's some new skill sets that I'm having to learn. So with that, and with that lesson, that first lesson that I learned, I encourage all of you guys to really think what are the things that have served you really well in the past, where maybe you need to change your approach, tweak your approach, look at the problems a little bit differently moving forward. And I know that that's such a hard thing to do. And I know sometimes we get comfortable in what has worked for us in the past, but don't get so comfortable in what has worked that we never move forward to the new thing. And when we think about this idea of comfortability, one of the things that come to mind, and you guys may have heard other speakers talk about it in the past, is when you think about Redbox, right? And kind of their model and how they went about getting entertainment out there in the world with their with their physical copies rather. And they didn't see a need to move to a streaming platform. And we see now, 2025, everything is streaming. My son actually wanted to buy a physical copy. I think it was the movie Whiplash, if I'm not mistaken, the drumming movie, right? He's a drummer. He loves music. He wanted to buy a physical copy, and I looked at him like he was crazy and was like, dude, we already have it on Amazon Prime. And he was like, no, like I really want like the physical copy so that I can watch it like on my personal DVD player while we're traveling out of town. And I was like, okay, and I got it for him. But up until that, like I cannot remember the last time rather that I bought a physical copy of a DVD. So just the same way that Redbox didn't want to let go of something that was working really well, and now they've been outpaced by all these other platforms that provide entertainment in a different way. Don't let that be your story, right? Don't let yourself be that kind of person that has these ideas, has these things that work great, but aren't willing to move into the next step. So for me, that was a huge lesson. The second thing, and you guys have heard me talk about this one before, is progress really does beat perfection. I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, imagine if from, I think it was the beginning of March, end of February when I started to today, if instead of getting on camera, practicing, having to talk in front of people, learning how to use the software and actually doing it, what if during this whole time I just like read books on how to do a great YouTube show, or, watch other YouTube videos on how to make a great YouTube video? Like, I would be so far behind, because even though like consuming that knowledge is great, like actually going out there and doing that and making those mistakes and having those hiccups and all of those things is where I really learned the most. And I don't think that is, applicable to just me. I think that's applicable to everybody. And now, I'm sure there's some caveats, but for the most part, applicable to everybody, where it's like you really have to kind of get your hands dirty, jump in both feet first, so to speak, really learn and engage with what it is that you're doing in order to hit that level of perfection. So with lesson 2, my challenge to you guys is, if there is something that you have found yourself reading way too much about, watching too many YouTube videos about, joining way too many master classes on, go ahead and give it a try, right? And you can do it in a small, safe space. Probably not if you're trying to be a neurosurgeon or something like that. But go ahead, see what happens. You more than likely you're not going to die, and you'd be surprised at the things that you learn. Maybe it's less scary than you thought. Maybe it's just as scary as you thought. But I really challenge you to think about, how does me doing this again and again and again, 20 times out, really support me, really help me, and get me to the place that I would like to be. The next thing, and I put my phone on do not disturb. Oh well. The next thing that I want to call out as far as a really powerful lesson that I learned is the power of engaging with the audience, with all of you guys. And for me, I've put together trainings in the past. I've put together content that went out to large groups of people, but really having to stop and think, okay, this isn't just my story. This isn't just the things that I care about. How can I talk about this in the way that all of you guys will care about as well? And, sometimes that changed, right? That changed my trajectory, that changed the things that I wanted to talk about. It changed the way that I spoke about them. And so for me, lesson number 3 is really all about how I engage with my audience. Now, as you guys can see, I haven't hit 1 million followers yet, or 1 million views, or anything like that. But just seeing, for me at least, how I was able to change the way that I spoke, the context that I use, making sure that I include stories, finding ways that I felt would really resonate with the people who listen to me, that for me was huge. And just having to be really intentional about that. So my takeaway and kind of my call to action for you guys from lesson number 3 is, if you are in a space where you are serving others, where you're reaching out to others, think about it from their perspective. Think about the conversations, not just from, this is the content that I want to put out, these are the words that I want to say. Think about it in terms of, how is it going to most resonate with the people that you're talking to, with the people that you're called to serve. And, sometimes that means things get cut out. Sometimes that means things get added in. But really thinking about it from the audience perspective helps me at least be a lot more authentic, genuine. And, I got tons of experience, tons of great stories. I'm sure that you guys like hearing them, but the more that you can see yourself in my stories, in the things that I've gone through, in the lessons that I've learned, the more that it allows me to help you. So do the same thing for your clients. And then the last thing here that I want to talk about is, and it kind of ties into number 2, is the fact that it's okay to experiment and learn as you go. And, I've talked about this before. I didn't have every single thing set up perfectly before I went down this path. There were things that I did and I tweaked and I adjusted. You guys probably going from episode number 1 to today, I changed out the camera that I use. I even changed out the mic that I used. I've gone back and forth playing with, do I do backlighting? Do I not do backlighting? Do I use a green screen? Do I not? All of these different things I kind of played around with and figured out as I went. And that's okay to do, right? Like it's not something that has to be set in stone. You can adjust, you can evolve as you go through this process. So I encourage all of you guys to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, right? Relax your shoulders, give yourself some wiggle room and figure out what works for you as you go through this journey. So just to wrap up, I really want to thank everybody for your support, for your encouragement. I love when people shoot me a comment. I have friends and family that send me text message and say, "Oh, I saw that. That was so great." So thank you for all of that. That really helps keep me going on those days when I'm like, "Oh my goodness, my calendar is super booked. Do I have time to squeeze in that YouTube episode?" So thank you for everybody who's been cheering me on to get to my number 20. As far as looking ahead, I mean, there's so many new things on the horizon. It's crazy. But now that I've hit, episode number 20, it's all about how do I refine this. There's some new topics that I've been playing around. I've been playing around with this idea of maybe doing like a 5-episode series. And, for me, I think the next fantastic goal would be to get to 100. Right? I don't know how long that's going to take. I haven't sat down and done the math. But, now that I've done 20, okay, what can you do to get to 100? And then even having some specific goals around viewers and views that I want to have. So that's for me. That's what I have coming next down the pipe on this. And I would just encourage all of you guys, if there's a favorite memory, a favorite lesson from one of your episodes, share it in the comments. Would love to see that from all of you guys. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe, like, and share this channel to help me grow this community. Thank you from the bottom of my heart from everybody who has supported this. I appreciate you guys all more than you could know. And I hope that everybody goes out there, has a fantastic Wednesday. Nope, it's Monday. Has a fantastic Monday. We're into soccer season, so it's just been crazy over here. Have a fantastic Monday, a fantastic rest of the week, and go out there and knock out those goals that are sitting on your to-do list. So excited for all of you.